Courthouse Park, which is in the middle of Ely. Ely is going to be a very scenic hub for us during this visit.
Like so many regions of Nevada, mining and the railroad played a huge role in the history of this area, and we're going to step into some of that history today.
Our guide into history is Sean Pitts, the director of the East Ely Railroad Depot Museum.
Good morning, Dave, Chris, welcome. Nice to have you in Eastern Nevada.
Well, thanks for having us out.
We're excited to have you here today. We're going to show you part of what we call Nevada's Outback.
Okay, nice.
We're going to go a little bit north, but I'm going to need you to help me on this one. Can you do this backwards with me?
I do most things backwards, so I think we're good.
So
Okay.
are you jumping through time?
We're
or-
going to go back in time from today to McGill, Nevada, where mining went on for more than milling actually went on for more than a century. And then we're going to go to the predecessor of McGill, north of there, and then we're going to go to the predecessor of that town. So visiting a ghost town in progress, and a modern mining town today. So let's go have a look. Come on.
A few miles north on Highway 93 takes us through McGill, and our first stop on our trip back in time, the early 1900s. Sean finds us a vantage point. We're on the slope here.
We are on a slope, and McGill was built on the slope for a historical reason. You needed the gravity to be able to process the thousands of tons of copper every day that were coming from the mine from Ruth. And McGill was the place where they did the smelting. The ore would be dumped into the crushers, then it would be amalgamated into a concentrate until they came out with copper. And so this alluvial fan, this gigantic slope that goes down from the mountains down to the valley floor, gave you that gravity-fed opportunity. Now, it's an astonishing amount of copper. 3 trains a day were feeding the smelter.
Wow.
That is an enormous amount, about, and that's about 32 cars per train, 3 times a day. Each of those cars weighing 80 tons to the car.
So what was the demand for copper? Where did the demand for copper come from?
The demand from copper came here in the United States at the tail end of the Industrial Revolution, which is pretty much an electrical revolution. Imagine how many miles of wire America needs to wire every house, every factory, every city, every public building, every street light. What McGill did have that no other place in Eastern Nevada had was access to water. And you need vast amounts of water to make that concentrating, that smelting happen. And that was possible here where it wasn't really possible anywhere else. This would be probably one of the quintessential company towns in America. The company ran this town. They ran everything about this town. If you wanted to work for the company, that was great. The company would let you live in a house that the company built.
So you're getting a paycheck, but then you're giving your rent back to the company.
Correct, and a little more extensive than that, Chris. Not only are you giving your rent back to the company, which was minimal, by the way, you're also buying your groceries from the company store. We do have in the collection of the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Ely a 1938 check that was for $38 and change. By the time they deducted the company house rent and the coal to heat the company house that they bought from the company, and the electricity that the company supplied to the company house, and the coupons from the company store, that $38 and change check was for 0.02.
Oh my gosh.
2 pennies.
Wow.
After working for 2 whole weeks.
It's interesting to think, you stand here and it feels pretty remote, but really this was an industrial capital. It was a site of a major capital fund for the entire nation.
You're exactly correct. This was, McGill, Nevada was the site of some of the best discoveries of copper and copper processing in the United States of America.
It's an interesting example of how Nevada, because of the resources and how rich the state is, how many times it's reinvented itself.
Well, let's go look at what came before. Now remember, we're doing this backwards. Okay, right. So we're going to go jump into the century before the last century.
All right, I'm ready to
do
jump.
That? Let's do that. Let's make that jump.
We head north for just over 40 miles on Highway 93 and then take the turn to Cherry Creek. After what feels like a very long, straight ribbon of road, we arrive.
So we've jumped back in time. We're now out of the 1900s and into the 1800s. We're standing at the town of Cherry Creek, Nevada. Cherry Creek has an amazing ability to boom and die reinvent itself, boom again, die again.
Sounds like a lot of Nevada.
So we start in 1872, we start mining gold here. It goes okay for a couple of years until about 1874. In 1874, everything crashes. By 1874, 1875, there's a new discovery. That discovery will spawn another discovery, which will spawn another, until you have 9 mines operating here.
And they were still mining gold at this point?
They were still mining gold, yes. There's at least 400 miners working here until 1880 when it booms. And when it booms, there becomes 1,800 people. During the 1930s, it was booming because of Prohibition. So this was Eastern Nevada's capital for bootleg whiskey.
Oh, a little different kind of gold.
You think about that, and Cherry Creek is the perfect place for bootlegging whiskey. There are any number of mines in the surrounding area.
And this view is kind of a natural security system. Really.
It is the ultimate security system. You can see a revenue coming from literally 3 miles away.
See the metal doors there with the look like rusted hinges. What would have been behind those doors?
Well, generally in Nevada, as you go to a ghost town and you find a building that's made out of stone that has iron shutters, that was generally a mercantile and a store that sold dangerous things like kerosene, dynamite, oil, things like that. And the reason that it was stone and had metal doors is that was the only way you could get insurance on it. We're walking down what would have been the main street, and some of the things that you see here is a really eclectic group of homes. You have brand new homes next to very vintage homes, next to homes that have been here forever, next to homes that were built a year ago.
And some of them look like they've been built from other older homes.
Correct, like some of them in kind of traditional old town fashion. You simply cobble your house together out of what's available. So Cherry Creek has one of the best lost mine and buried treasure stories that comes from the era of Prohibition. Now the gentleman that told me this at the time was in his 80s, but telling me a story about when he was 8 or 9 years old, his father was a bootlegger. And so this gentleman, because he's one of the better bootleggers, would say, hey, I'll take your money, but I'm only going to take your coin money. He says, Dad, what happened to the box? The dad, sitting in his rocking chair on the front porch here in Cherry Creek, would motion his head like that, which meant, I can see it from here. It's in my bank. There's a possibility that it's out there, and if it is, then you owe me 10% because I'm the one that told it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cherry Creek's original schoolhouse is still here and has been since 1872. Today it's a museum housing a cornucopia of artifacts and oddities from the past.
So one of the amazing things about this schoolhouse, built in 1872, is the blackboard that's still on the wall. The blackboard is blackboards, okay? And every time I come, there's a new person who's been in here and added their name and the dates that they attended school in this one-room schoolhouse.
Attendance from the 30s till today, they're checking in. That's really cool that they've come back to do it.
And you can really see the construction of it. It doesn't look like a chalkboard like I went to school with.
Just blackboards, boards painted black.
So instead of erasing it, you just paint it over?
You would need to maintain it by painting it over, I'm sure, but I'll bet you could walk up and erase the chalk that's on it.
This museum is it's chock full of the most eclectic memorabilia I could imagine.
Of everything from Cherry Creek, things that were of value to this community, things that they decided they needed to save, are still here. And it's one of my favorite places to visit when you come to Cherry Creek. So we have one more thing to show you, and it's this gentleman. His portrait hangs here in the museum here at Cherry Creek. It's Howard Egan. Howard Egan is responsible for where we're headed to next. As we work our way back in time in this episode, we're going to go to the place that was responsible for this place.
Egan Canyon is just a few miles down a maintained dirt road from Cherry Creek. Inside the canyon, Sean tells us some of its history.
Now, Egan Canyon was founded by a man by the name of Howard Egan. He was sent by Brigham Young in the 1840s to bring cattle from California to Salt Lake. The necessity was to feed oncoming people that were going to be coming to Salt Lake. He needed to make that in the shortest time possible. So Howard Egan, finds this canyon that's behind us, and he finds this canyon as the most direct route to California. It is so direct that the Pony Express will use that canyon in 1860 and 61, which means Mark Twain traveled exactly where we're standing at some point in his life. He even records some of that in his book, Roughing It. Because this was a Pony Express stop, that job is relatively boring because you've got one pony rider coming every so often. It might be once a day, coming each way. We are standing on the site of the single most destroyed station of the Pony Express, of the entire route.
Why did it get destroyed? Did people not like it here?
Well, a couple of reasons. The first was the Paiute Indian War of 1860. Unfortunately, a Pony Express station is, if you are on a warpath, Pony Express station is perfect. It's isolated, there's always going to be food, there will always be supplies, and there will be very few people there at any one time.
Are we looking at, is this path the Pony Express route?
The road that we travel on, coming through Egan Canyon, is the actual Pony Express route from 1860 to 61. So when you read the accounts of Mark Twain and those guys who were riding along this trail, this is
what they saw.
This is what they saw.
Not a bad place to ride.
Not a bad place to ride at all.
Nearby is Fort Pierce Cemetery, an isolated, lonely graveyard with wooden headstones that are faded now, but once identified those who saw their stories end here. Of course, many stories began here, and this view across the valley no doubt inspired those who came out west.
It was this place that would spawn Cherry Creek. The mining at Cherry Creek would spawn further exploration in White Pine County. Even in the 1870s, they knew that copper existed, and that copper was probably found from people that started here and then continued to fan out throughout the county.
It makes for a beautiful place to explore with some good history.
It's a wonderful place to
stories.
explore. It's a wonderful place to hike. It's on Bureau of Land Management land, so it's actually owned by the American people.
It's our land.
It is our land,
enjoy
and it's certainly worth a visit.
Yeah.
And not a terrible road.
No,
to
not
get
at all.
out.
It was beautiful driving in that canyon. I look forward to driving on the way back.
It's been an absolute honor to take you backwards in time here in White Pine County. Thank you so much for that opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
We'll go back forward now as we go back toward Ely.
Okay, let's do that.
As we return to Ely and modern times, we're grateful to Sean for taking us through some of White Pine County's history. We look forward to a new adventure tomorrow.